Okay, well, so my name is Joe Frost, and tonight I'd like to talk about a bike race that I did last weekend called the Trans-Iowa. So this thing has been run 12 times. The first running was in 2005, and after the first running is when I first heard about the race and kind of became intrigued about it. I've started 5 of these things, and I've finished 2. So there's the logo, kind of cool, I guess, this year. It's a gravel road race in Iowa. It's a long one. We're looking at usually between 320 and 340 miles. Gravel roads. It's in April, so we have some weather variability, you know. Tons of climbing, and you guys probably know that like Iowa's not flat, you know. It's just goes up and down. Well, anyway, all right. And there's a 34-hour time limit. So there's not enough time to really sleep or things like that. But if you can maintain a rolling average of 10 miles an hour, you're maybe going to finish.
Hey Joe, how many people actually register now?
So there's a cap of 120, and there's a little attrition. So this year, 85 people took the start, and that's pretty typical. So 85 starters. The route changes every year, and this is this year's route. It starts and finishes in Grinnell, Iowa, which is about halfway between Iowa City and Dubuque. And they've been there for the last 4 years. So it's a completely unsupported race. So there's no aid stations, you know, there's no course markers, there's no mechanical support or medical support. There's no sag wagon, which is unfortunate, I guess, or whatever. You use cue sheets for navigation, and GPS is not allowed. So navigation is sort of a real factor in this race. Yeah, so cue sheets are, they're your directions, okay? And it'll say something like, at 180.5 miles, you turn right on 275th Street. And then the next line will say, at 183.2 miles, you turn right on whatever street. And
If you don't, you're in Nebraska.
yeah, right. Well, you know, you're riding along and you realize, hey, I'm supposed to be coming up on something and nothing's here, and then you realize how screwed you really are. So that totally can happen. Out of 5 times in this thing, I've had major navigational issues 4 times. So, I mean, okay. You might be thinking, gee, you know, well, I got people for that, but contact with family and friends and support is not allowed. So you can't meet somebody for clothes or food or mechanical repairs, or even a hug on the side of the road, right? You can run the tracker software on your phone so they can keep an eye on you. Maybe a quick text, you know, I'm still alive. But your support person is only really utilized when you're quitting. The route, it's not published. You get the first cue sheets to the first checkpoint the night before. And that's usually at around 50 to 60 miles. And then at that point, you get the next 100 miles or so of cue sheets. And then you get the last 100 miles of cue sheets. And the towns that you go through are not listed. And the convenience stores that you might be passing are not listed either. So there's a tremendous sense of the unknown when you take the start line in this event, right? Because you don't know where you're going or how long you're going to have to go before a chance to refuel. And that is a big deal too, because this weekend there was about a 100-mile stretch between convenience stores. And the group I was riding with, you know, we all ran out of everything at about 70 miles. And at that point we were going about 12 miles an hour. So we had nearly 3 hours with nothing, and we had gone a long way, and we had a long way to go. That was like at the 260-mile mark was that blessed convenience store. But you still had 80 to go, you know, which is not an insignificant amount of riding. So there's a lot of this on the website that you are responsible for you. You are responsible for yourself. The entry fee is free. Did that? Oh, well, that's okay. That's all right. The entry fee is free, but there are some shenanigans you kind of have to get through to get into this event. It's easier if you've been in the event before, and it's easiest if you've finished the event before. As a rookie, you have to do a few more things, but the instructions are detailed in the fall on the website, and there's no way to get in if you miss it. And if you ask about getting in, then you're never going to get in. and I can kind of understand this. This guy puts a ton of effort into this, makes zilch on the deal, and I think people just kind of email him and have bugged the hell out of him, and he said, you know what? You're out. Any questions? You're out. So if you become intrigued with this event, and if you're like, wow, I'd really like to do it, watch the website, and if you have any questions, ask me, but don't email Guitar Ted. He's a friendly guy, but he's got his limits, you know. No, well, that's how his handle kind of originated, yeah. So it's all on the website, but yes. So this year, the first checkpoint was at 53 miles, and the second one was 160, and the total distance, it was a long one this year at 339.9 miles. And there was a bridge out that went out in the week before the event, so there was a reroute. So it actually came out to more like 341, but whatever. Okay, so we're a multi-sport group, right? I thought it'd be really fun to compare Ironman and the Trans-Iowa, right? Because these are like on opposite ends of the spectrum as far as, you know, whatever. So this picture is from an Ironman, and we're coming into a checkpoint or a transition. And we've got, you know, billboards and, you know, chip timing and, you know, timing boards. There's, you know, booming music. There's announcers. There's a ton of spectators. There's helicopters. You got your bag of stuff right there, you know. You got somebody that's going to help you get out of your wetsuit. You got nutrition right there. You got somebody that's going to spray sunscreen on you. And that really makes you feel like a pro athlete. That is great. I got to say, the transitions were my favorite part. All right. This is the first checkpoint in Trans-Iowa 3. This is the first checkpoint. And this was 50 miles in. And I love this because this is like a rural Casey's general store. And these guys are sitting on the ground. This guy's like, oh, God, I have 270 miles to go. You know, I mean, just a lot of despair here that day. Out on the course, this was in Branson. And so Branson has like this, you know, bypass, like this interstate highway style thing going around their city. And they shut down both ways for the Ironman. So, I mean, this is amazing because, like, you're riding on a road like I-90, you know, on your bike. And, like, full shoulder, 2 big lanes, another full shoulder, you know, on ramps, the whole 9 yards, and there's only bikes on it. It was incredible. You got people directing you where to go. I mean, you can't make a wrong turn. So that was really great. This was from Saturday morning, and this also was really great, but it was much different. You know, there's no marking, there's no nothing, you know. Yeah, it was good gravel, though, at this point. It was nice and fast, slightly downhill. The sun's out, the sun is shining, the birds are singing, there's a tailwind. Everything was good at that point. So both those things were good. And then, of course, the finish, you know, I outsprinted this guy for like 3,000th place, okay? So this was, you know, I mean, the biking was pretty good, but the rest was kind of sad, but okay. So, you know, again, you know, you've got billboards and sponsors and the booming stereo system and Joe Frost, you're an Ironman, blah, blah, all the stuff, spectators. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, gotta have the branding and all that stuff. So, tons of fun, you know, there's awards and there's medals and there's all the stuff. And then this is the finish line at Trans-Iowa 3, right there. You know, you got family, friends. There's no prizes, there's no awards, there's no medals, there's no spectators, there's no music, there's no billboards, there's no nothing, you know. There's a handshake from Guitar Ted and maybe a hug, which I really appreciate that. There's a sense of accomplishment, but it's a very different sense of accomplishment than, okay. So, like any event, there's good and there's other things, but this was the start on Saturday. It always starts at 4 a.m., so it's a really early start. And there was like no wind, and it was like 45 degrees, and it was just peaceful and quiet, and everybody kind of congregated, and the lights were blinking, and it was great. And then Saturday morning, we're rolling downwind on this fabulous gravel. This kind of was the group that I rode in most of the race. This dude finished first in the single speed category, which is unbelievable. And this gal up here, she won the women's event. And this dude I met at dinner, and he was a super strong rider, and that really helped out. But that was really great. In Iowa, they have these minimally maintained roads that are kind of just, well, okay, all right. Well, they got a lot of them in Iowa. Okay. But they're dirt roads, and they kind of smooth them out once in a while, but they can be pretty treacherous in poor conditions. But on Saturday, we were just riding right along, like no problem. This was the most primitive road, so you got some pretty deep water grooves, and this is pretty steep, and then it shoots straight up at the end, so this was the only unrideable portion of the entire course this year, which was great. Well, I mean, unrideable, like you couldn't ride it, but there were some physical reasons that maybe you couldn't ride it, but this was the only unrideable part. And so that was kind of neat. But there's a lot of bad in the Trans-Iowa, I got to tell you. The good, there's a little good, but there's a whole lot of bad. I mean, this is, I don't know what year this is, but you can see, you know, there's a roller here, a roller here, a roller here, and it is just never-ending, nut-busting climbs at certain parts of this race, where you're like, I just can't believe there even are this many hills anywhere, you know. These guys are really bundled up, it's looking pretty cold. Here we got the steel gray skies, you know, kind of cold and blustery, and then the real fresh gravel. You know, they're laying gravel in the spring, and some years they get more down than others. But there's not even a groove here to really follow. So you're on this relatively rough gravel, and you know, climbing can be a little whatever, but then the descents at night can be quite an experience, I got to tell you. So flying down these hills, loose gravel, falling asleep, outrunning your lights, and then of course there's the ugly, right? So you get some rain and you can end up with this. You know, it's really that energy-sucking ground, and you're trying to make it up, but you're not going to make it. You know, you may wonder why there's a bunch of grass crammed in there in my bike. Well, it's because the level B roads turn into this. So it's a real sticky mud. So when you ride into this, a lot of times you're going to have enough mud caked on your wheels they don't pass through the frame anymore. And so then you're going to have to pick your bike up, which now weighs 50 pounds, right? And start walking, which most of these people were doing. You can see the tracks. And it balls up on your feet. And so now your feet weigh 10 pounds each. So you're just, I mean, it's just, ooh. You know, it may take you 30 minutes to go a mile, and it's not an easy 30 minutes. And then in Trans-Iowa 2, man, this is really bad. This was one of the years nobody finished, nobody made the halfway point. And this was back when it was a point-to-point race across the whole state from west to east. So it was like mid-40s, it was raining, and there was a strong easterly wind. And that is just going to be a long, hard, unsuccessful day when you have conditions like that. The other really, really brutal year was last year, 2015, and there's a great picture of that. I mean, that is really sloppy. And you got this guy down here, and you got this guy up here, and they're trying to make it, but one guy made the 50-mile checkpoint and then bailed out at 100.
50 miles in?
Yeah. 50 miles in, only one guy made the checkpoint on time. And he's like this, I mean, you know, super guy, you know. He's not like a regular guy. So
checkpoints are timed?
Yeah, that was, you must have missed that slide. Well, anyway, yeah, you usually have about 5 hours to make the first checkpoint, 4.5, something like that. And then you got to maintain a little bit higher speed. And then there's more time the later in the event that it goes. But the first checkpoint, man, that can be really a tough one to make some years. So 2 years, no finishers. 2 years, they shortened the course, and there were some finishers. And then 8 years, there were finishers. And the difference, what is the difference? The difference obviously is the weather. So, you know, you may have rain. You're going to have wind. You're going to have some degree of cold. I mean, the warmest years, it still gets in the mid-40s, and the coldest years, it gets below freezing. This year, it hit 77. In Trans-Iowa 3, it hit 82, so you got a little bit of a heat issue. And then I've been at the start line on one where there's actually snow. So that was a little depressing. And of course, you cannot control the weather. And so I think this is one of the things that has made this event like even more like enchanting, intriguing, or legendary or whatever, because, you know, you can be in condition to make it, but the weather can shut you down. So anybody that's finished this thing, two things. First of all, they got into good enough shape to go the distance, and second of all, they got a little bit lucky with the weather, because the weather can make it so nobody finishes. So, okay, so why do a race like this, right? Why would you even consider doing a race like this, right? Okay, so the number one reason that I have come up with is because it is fun to take on a big challenge and succeed, right? It's fun thinking about it. It's fun signing up for it. It's fun training for it. It's fun planning for it. It kind of takes over part of your life to the chagrin of your significant other, let me tell you. You're always talking about, tires and fenders and... Yeah, no, I know, right? Well, it's great for you, It's fun going to the event. The event itself is, kind of fun at times. But then finishing is fun. And then the telling and retelling of stories, that's always fun, right? And the other thing is there's tremendous carryover into other areas of your life. Other sporting events and like business-related things. You go through something difficult, and you come out the other side. And then when you're going through things that are difficult in the future, you're like, well, this is pretty tough, but I've gone through tough things before, so I can make it, And there is a social aspect when you're going through something difficult with a group of people. There's some kind of funny bond that forms. It's not like, we're best friends on, Facebook or whatever, or stay overnight at each other's houses or anything, but, you kind of bond with your brothers and sisters in races like this. And parts of this race that really are incredibly beautiful and fun. I love this picture here because, I like to think this guy's ridden all night and, the sun's coming up and he's just got a few more hours to go and he's going to finish the thing. Isn't that great, Or this guy is like, yeah, I made it, thank God. So, okay. Some challenges and strategies for the Trans-Iowa. So, obviously, you need to be ready for a big challenge like this. And it isn't enough to just want to finish it. You got to want to prepare to finish it to have a chance. And when you're talking about a spring event, you're talking about riding indoors for most of us. So I thought I'd snap a quick picture of my pain cave here, It's gotten a lot easier with modern trainers and, online 3D environments like Zwift and things like that. But even just watching movies can really help the time pass. And, when I first started training inside, a 30-minute ride was a long way. And I mean, an hour was there's just no way. You'd have to be insane to go an hour. But over the winter, I worked up to 5 or 5.5 hour rides inside. And they really weren't that bad. So, you can do it. The other thing about being ready for the challenge is that you got to accept that it is going to hurt bad. And it may be the most difficult thing that you've ever done, And this goes for these long events, but I'm sure that in the duathlon, there were people that were like, wow, this really hurts bad, This is like a living hell, Because that's what it takes to go fast or to go long. When things get bad, then you're not going to be surprised at the difficulty. So this is another one of my favorite pictures here. This is from this year, so this is just Saturday morning at 4 a.m. And look at how these guys are all looking down. And we're not having a moment of silence here, right? I mean, this is moments before the start, and they are steeling themselves for the challenge that is ahead. And I was one of these guys looking down thinking, man, the weather looks pretty good. I hope I can make it, I hope nothing bad happens. I hope I got it in me to get to the finish line. In a long event, or even a short one, stuff's going to happen out there, and you do need to not freak out and find a way to keep on going. So with long events over rough terrain, you got, tire and wheel problems, you got drivetrain problems, you got pedal and shoe interface issues when it's muddy. But you also have things like, you're eating out of a convenience store, and you're going to have a stomach revolution guaranteed at some point in this thing. Or maybe the majority is going to be a low-grade stomach revolution, You may go a long time without finding a place to eat. And then you got the navigational issues and the weather, too. So all those things, you got to be ready to deal with them when you're out there. And then other people, because other people, they do make a tremendous tremendous difference in the outcome of your ride. So here we are at the finish line with my new favorite gal, right? This gal, Sarah Cooper, she's won a lot of long endurance events, you know. And I've read some of her blogs, and you know, so I kind of knew who she was, and then ended up riding in the group that she was in. And it was really interesting because she was super fast at the convenience stores. Like we stopped at 3 stores. At least I stopped at 4 stores, but 3 stores with her. And she would get her stuff together and then somehow motivate the group to get going without spending too much time goofing around. And in a nice way. I'm not exactly sure how she did that, but that really was key to my finish. I mean, you know, I've done long rides before, and you can't believe how fast the time goes when the bike's not moving. I mean, it really is incredible. And this is that dude I met at dinner the night before, you know, and good attitude, super strong. He came in 4th, you know, so I mean, like, out of 80, whatever, 85. Positive attitude, steady rider, you know, great to be with somebody like that. I guess. Huh? Yeah, well, yeah, I know. I mean, this is like 6:30 on Sunday, you know, and I'm like, wow, I'd love a beer, but I just can't do it, you know. Oh, my water bottle. Oh, I see. Yeah, he's drinking a beer. I'm right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, I got you. All right. So, long events. I would recommend not thinking about the big picture very much, because if we're talking about a big challenge, it by definition is somewhat overwhelming, right? And if you get overwhelmed, you have a better chance of quitting. But of course, you guys all know this, right? Like every big challenge can be broken down into little challenges or small steps. And so if there was a period where we had relatively flat terrain going right into the wind, and it was 9 miles, and working in a pace line, we were going 10 miles an hour. So that was really mentally a very challenging section of the race. But not thinking about, you know, this is going to take an hour, and then we have like 180 miles to go or whatever. Just thinking about, okay, you know, 1 down, 9 to go. 2 down, 8 to go. We got 3 to go. We got 2 to go. We got 1 to go. We're just going to think about this one section, or even this 1 mile. And then when you achieve that, then you focus on the next thing. So we're just riding to the next turn. And this is totally applicable to triathlon because, you know, if you're on the bike or maybe even swimming and going through a rough patch, and you're thinking, man, I have so much farther to go, you know. It's like you just got to like settle down, maintain forward progress, work on your nutrition, and get through that difficult section because it's going to get better at some point. If you're on a long ride and you're not up against the time cut, I would recommend not even looking at your time or speed because it can be so depressing. And then if you feel like despair, well, it might be true despair, but it might be just that you haven't been feeling properly. So if you really want to quit, don't do it until you have a snack and just take a 20-minute break. That'd be my best recommendation. People in Trans-Iowa think once you get halfway through, the rest is totally mental. And that isn't a new thing. There's an old Randonneur saying, nothing changes after 300K. So these randonnée events, they're between 100 and 1,200K long, and they're timed events. You got checkpoints you got to hit. But after somewhere in that 150 to 200 mile range, you are feeling super bad, but you're not going to feel a whole lot worse. The pain's going to move around, but you know, at 180 miles I felt horrible, and at 340 miles I felt just as horrible, but no worse. Just horrible in a different way. So nothing changes after 300K. All right. Okay, so that's how to get through it. Easy, right? Okay. So I thought I'd have some fun facts, you know. I think this is the 9-mile section right here, just straight into the teeth of it. That was really bad. Although it looks longer than that. Anyway. All right. The last 25 miles took me 2 hours and 30 minutes. So, you know, in time trials, I like to try and go 55 minutes, you know, or whatever. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. But 2 hours and 30 minutes, it worked out to 9.9 miles an hour. And that was definitely the most challenging 25 miles of my entire life. I mean, it really was. It was up and down. It was still dark. You know, you're cold, you're tired. You can't eat very well because, you know, you're either humping up this thing or flying down the other side on sketchy gravel. So, and you're trying to choke down some kind of nasty candy bar. Ugh. 145 watts was my average power. So it was about half my threshold. And now this part is like, this is what I'm most proud of the whole thing. Total elapsed time was 26 hours and 17 minutes, but total moving time was 25 hours and 7 minutes. So the bike was only stationary an hour and 10 minutes. And 20 minutes was the first stop, and 20 minutes was the last stop. And
Sleep on the bike.
well, that's kind of a funny thing too, because I got into this thing, and I remember before I was so tired between like 2 and 6 or 2 and 5, like that really bad, like just weaving all over, just totally a hazard to everybody and myself too. So I was gonna I'm getting off caffeine, and then, so I got off caffeine like in December, like no caffeine, and then I'm saving it up, and then at that night I'm gonna get myself so jacked up on caffeine that I'm gonna come flying through the night. It's gonna be great, and I forgot to buy anything at the convenience store, so I still was like, all this not drinking caffeine didn't work out, but average heart rate was 107, so there you go. I weighed 187 pounds and my bike weighed 31. It weighed 21.8 without the stuff. So you're like, oh, how much stuff were you carrying? Well, I had a multi-tool and then one of those little mini Leathermans, 2 tubes, some plastic tire levers, a tire boot, some duct tape, some CO2 and a pump. And then, just in case things got really bad, I had one of those charcoal heater things. Because at night, after you've been out there all day, your body temperature just plummets when you stop moving, or at least mine does. So I thought, well, if I have a flat tire or something I have to stop, I could just stick that underneath my jersey and maybe not die of hypothermia. Had a space blanket, really get snuggled in, and then some wet wipes because, you never know if something needed wiping. I'll just leave it at that. Nothing did, but, you never know what's going to happen out there. So I've been super lucky with the bike, though, because out of all these miles, I've had zero mechanical trouble, which is really great. And that, that's another thing. Does anybody know David Swanson? He's from Rockford, maybe? Yeah, David Swanson? No? Well, anyway, okay. He's from Rockford, and he's quite a bit younger than me, but we rode together for a while in this event. And, he was a stronger rider, no question. He pulled us up to a group a couple times, and I was like, wow, that was, thanks, man, that was great, But he had a flat tire going into the night, and going into the night was kind of that period where nobody had any food or water, and he called it quits. And that was really too bad. If he would have been with the group, he might have hung in there, I had to really, I guess I had to employ one of my most secrets to keep going at that point. If I hadn't been with the group, I might have quit, Anybody want to know what the secret is? Well, okay, so it's the showing off for girls secret, right? The showing off for girls secret? Well, yeah, absolutely, right? So, we were riding and there's a woman in the group, so I don't want to, I'm not going to complain, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to show her how strong, well, yeah, I know, but I'm going to do everything I can do. All right, forget it. Right? So like, how long was your longest training ride? Training for this thing? 8.5 hours. So it wasn't like training rides were like 20 hours or 15 hours. It was 8.5 hours. That was the longest one. And the hours in 2016 were 175, which for me was a lot, but that isn't a tremendously huge number of hours. I think like a normal person can actually train for it and actually do it. Strava said it was 14,000 calories, so whatever. And I don't know, I got to rethink this, but this is what I ate. I had 6 bottles of Ensure, and then I switched to chocolate milk. Tried to get candy bars that would go down easy, but they didn't. And then went with Snickers Marathon bars because those don't turn into a soppy mess in the heat quite so bad. But they're really hard to get down. The best thing was the deep fried cheese balls. Those were good. I had half a piece of pizza because Sarah Cooper was ready to go, and I was only halfway done, so I threw it away. And then a ham and turkey wrap. Once again, the showing off for girls. I don't need this, Right.
So it's 14,000 calories.
Yeah.
You weighed 187 pounds when you started. What did you weigh when you ended?
Yeah, so that was really interesting. My weight went up quite a bit, at least after the event, maybe during. I'm not sure. I didn't really get a weight like right after the event, but I hit 197 the Monday morning after. I think there was just a lot of fluid, you couldn't see my veins or anything. It was just, really bad. So, Number of cars seen on the gravel Saturday night? Exactly 1. So traffic is not much of an issue, you know. So, all right, so I'll leave you with 2 of my favorite pictures here that really sum up the spectacular beauty of rural Iowa. I mean, it's challenging, and this is the same picture, but it's a little more stylized, you know. I just love it, you know. So it's a really spectacular event, and I don't know, I guess I encourage everybody to consider a long one. Is that it? Is it fit kit time? All right, sounds good, sounds good. Okay, all right.